Welcome to another episode of the Historical Movies Podcast, a podcast all about movies inspired by history. I'm Ross Evans, I'm an editor, and I'm joined by Professor of Modern History at Liverpool Hope University and historical scriptwriter Bryce Evans. Bryce, how are you this fine day?
Jolly good, all the better for having watched this magnificent Persian movie.
Yes, because in this episode, the Iranian sniper has to die at any price. It's The Sniper. Yes, so a bit of background. We are not doing the 1993 film Sniper with Tom Berenger. We're not doing the 2009 film The Sniper from Hong Kong, and we're not doing American Sniper from 2014. No, we're doing the 2021 film Sniper, the Iranian blockbuster banger. It's a movie about Abdolrasoul Zarrin, an Iranian sniper during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, and he is apparently the most prolific sniper of all time with over 700 confirmed kills. Now, the reason we watched this, Bryce, is firstly because we love a zag on this podcast. Secondly, because it was recommended to us by superfan Fabi. Thank you, Fabi. And thirdly, because it's free on YouTube to watch, which you can do on the Top Persian Movies channel. And more than 2.7 million people have done that. So we're speaking to them. And last but not least, the history is quite incredible. I didn't know a huge amount about the Iran-Iraq War before I read about it. A war with total fatalities of more than 1 million, trench warfare, chemical weapons, child soldiers, horrific stuff. So, Bryce, how did you get on? We'll talk about the movie first, and then we'll go into history. How did you get on with The Sniper?
Well, I think it's good on this pod that we have a good global geographical remit. We try and do stuff which isn't just Hollywood. So this is our first foray into the Middle East, and as you said, it's thanks to long-time fan of the show, Fabi. And if other listeners have recommendations, send them in. We'll check out the movie as long as it meets our criteria, of course. Now, this as a movie, I read an interview with the director in which he lamented, and I quote, the lack of superhero movies in Iranian cinema.
Right.
And this is that. It is set during the Iran-Iraq War. We'll get onto the history in a while. But I think it's essentially a superhero movie set during wartime. It came out in the same year as Mansour, which is a similar biopic about a late commander-in-chief of the Iranian Air Force in the same conflict. So we're really, I suppose, back to the great man school of historical movies here, yes. Persian edition.
Well, we never strayed too far away from the great man of history, do we, on this podcast?
Alas,
Indeed, as is the want of historical films. Yes, well, I'm guessing this movie is set in 1984 because that's the year in which Abdolrasoul Zarrin died. This is I found this a very enjoyable, in many ways not because it's a brilliant film, but the first hour, we have like an opening ambush scene where the sniper saves this young boy. There's a plot that he wants to recover the body of his dead brother. There's like a little bit of bonding between Zarrin and the young boy. We see the Iraqi side. Oh, how are we going to catch the sniper? They get like Tweedledum and Tweedledee of the Iraqi sniper force to try and corner him. And then like after the hour, this film just goes absolutely bananas. And there's this guy, my favourite character actually, Colonel Gayoom Rashed, the guy with the moustache and bald head, just walks into no man's land, seemingly takes out half of the Iranian front line before they realise he's there. Then there's like a sniper showdown. Then Zarrin stops single-handedly an Iraqi army armoured assault. And then he goes to the Iraqi base, kills a load of foreign mercenaries, and the aforementioned Colonel Rashed, and then dies. And that's the movie. And I was thinking, well, what happened? I mean, it comes back at the end to the young boy who's now gone on to become a sniper himself. He's probably the least convincing candidate for a sniper of all time, but there we go. But what happened to the plot about his wanting to recover his brother's body and all of that? What happened to the plot about them bonding?
That's just
what happens in the second half of this movie?
Well, that leads us into I suppose one of the central questions here is, can we view this as is this a propaganda movie, basically? And I suppose it raises the questions of the limitations of artistic expression in Iran. Inside Iran, I've seen a few Iranian movies, different genre. They're good. They produce good films. Mm-hmm. But there's obviously topics that are anathema to the Iranian regime, which they won't allow. I think they'll try and make good films. However, on this subject, of course, the Iran-Iraq war, you're just not going to get nuanced or critical filmmaking, which brings me back to your talking about the young boy. Well, one of the big things in this is I think really where the film is at its weakest is when the titular character, the sniper, is imparting sort of theologically inspired wisdom to this young protege. And that's the theme here. Don't just pursue this war of vengeance, but do it for God, essentially.
Yes. Every time I want to shoot this gun, I say to God, I'm not the one who shoots, you are. Which is, I think, a point we'll come back about. I've got a note written down here, the cult of the sniper. We'll come on to that in a minute. But first, let's talk about the Iran-Iraq war, which lasted from September 1980 to August 1988. And it was in the wake of the Iranian Revolution in 79. Saddam Hussein wanted to take advantage of this disruption and take over economic resources. Is that right? Thankfully, you're here to give us some background.
Yeah, I mean, Saddam Hussein, it's the first important act of his presidency. And at first sight, it looks as if Iraq could win. Iran has been, you've gone from the Shah regime to the Islamic Revolution. And of course, with all that turmoil, it's been sort of seriously weakened. A lot, of course, of understandably, a lot of like the senior officers, Army, Navy and Air Force of the Shah's regime have fled. So Saddam sees his opportunity, has the support, of course, of good old Ronald Reagan, Saddam promises victory within 4 days. Well, his troops, though, Saddam's, don't turn out to be that good, and they haven't got that much experience. And I think an interesting thing as well is that the Iranian troops rally hard and, mount really quite a good rear guard and then, really press on to get the invaders out. I think an interesting thing is that some officers who had been under the Shah stayed on just out of love of their country. They had no love of the regime. They had no love of the revolution, but they stayed on to defend their country. Now, that's something we don't really get in this movie. And I'll get onto that in a second, because I think you more get the impression in this movie of a sort of citizen army. So that's an issue there. Now, you get, of course, these so-called human wave attacks. It's a very bloody contest. Just to go on with the history, by 1982, Saddam and the Iraqis are close to defeat. He sues for peace. Ayatollah Khomeini says no. Now, always the West here we've got to consider, haven't we? So the feeling in the West is it's great that these two are kicking lumps out of each other. But there's a fear with Iran winning by 82 that Iran is going to impose its Islamic revolution on the Shiite population of Iraq. Remember, Saddam is a Sunni. As a result, the US, the Soviet Union, Britain and France all step in to save Saddam, etc. And of course, the war then drags on in the most bloody way for another 6 years with, as you said before, huge loss of life. But it suits the big powers, doesn't it? Two unpleasant and dangerous regimes knocking seven bells out of each other. Again, one of the things we don't get in this movie is that sense of geopolitics, is it? I mean, maybe why would we? But, all the countries in the Middle East know that if Saddam wins, their safety is at stake. So again, contrary to this movie, you do have things which seem really head-scratching, like Israel. Israel actually supplies Iran. Israel supplies Iran with weapons, intelligence, training. Israeli Air Force takes out Saddam Hussein's nuclear plant in 1981. So it's a conflict with a lot of great power and Cold War interest, in which you've got some surprising actors taking different sides. Of course, we get none of that in this movie, because would it be fair to say that this is a boys' movie to the extent... Well, are there any women in this movie? I think not.
Oh, what a great shout that is, because this is one of my beloved topics. Sorry, I sound like a complete misogynist. I'm not beloved. I'm most interested in films that have no women, not even extras. And I can only name, I think, Lawrence of Arabia, but I haven't seen it for a while. We'll get onto that, I'm sure, that film at some point, so I'll be looking out. And a film with Ray Liotta from the mid-90s called No Escape. No women, not even extras.
Well, I think you'd be pushed to find women in. Where are the women in this? I don't think we see a single female in this movie.
I think you may be correct. God, that's crazy. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's one to add to the list, list of shame. I've got a quote from Henry Kissinger. It's a pity they both can't lose. Foreign minister of America, the great figure that was Henry Kissinger. Iran, I read, was relatively isolated, but Iraq was supported, interestingly, by the US and the Soviet Union, as well as
and
UK,
French,
France,
yeah.
and the French. Yeah. So is it? I mean, I didn't know a lot about this conflict. I don't know if a lot of people in the West know a lot about this conflict. Is it because it's in a part of the world that we don't, quote unquote, the West doesn't care about? Is it because the Soviet Union and the US are on the same side? Is that why we don't hear a lot about it? Is it just a historical oddity?
Well, and again, I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but the use of phrase beloved of knee-jerk right-wing podcasters, but the mainstream media narrative of, the subsequent wars against Saddam, post 9/11, of course, kind of likes to conveniently forget that Saddam is financed and supported by the West enthusiastically at this time. So I suppose it doesn't help that sort of, can I say, MSM narrative. I do think if we look at this movie, it's a propaganda movie in many ways, but in some ways, when you look at the range of powers lined up against Iran, now I've just sort of muddied that by saying actually covertly Israel supported Iran, but Iran was the sort of victim here of Iraqi aggression, and I suppose we've got to always remember sort of audience, I suppose Persian audiences' reception of this movie, even people who don't really like the regime, like the movie itself is very sort of Robin Hood stuff, isn't it? And in a way, Iran is the victim here, who do, against quite staggering odds at some stages, do fight back successfully at huge human cost. They are, in some ways, depending on how you look at it, the sort of the goodies here. I mean, obviously we know quite clearly in the movie that they're the goodies because the baddies are very clearly signalled, aren't they? They're how would you describe them? It's sort of very high camp Iraqi military.
Brilliant. Amazing.
The nemesis of the sniper looks like a sort of Iranian military Freddy Mercury, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's just incredible in this light pink military desert uniform, resplendent moustache, leather gloves, missing index finger. Yeah, he's got everything, isn't he? He's the real cinema baddie.
High camp fascism, I would say, is the theme of the Iraqis in this movie, and they are to a great extent the baddie here. But it's very it is sort of rammed down our throats. Like I said before, some senior officers stayed on. People who didn't like the revolution but were there under the Shah stay on to defend their country. We get none of that here, do we? Because when we first meet the Iranian, the People's Army, it's when the Iraqi sort of Freddie Mercury character is coming in his driving gloves and his cravat, and he gets snipers to shoot the so-called the chickens, the cowards on his own side, and then he launches this attack with artillery. And then the camera sweeps to the Persian lines, and my goodness, it's like we're in an Islington coffee shop. They're all sort of proto-hipsters with beards, glasses.
It looks quite nice, doesn't it?
Keffiyeh scarves, beanie hats. There's a character called Mohammed Jabir who looks nothing more than Jeremy Corbyn, who's sort of going around bumbling about making the sandwiches. It's comradely, it's revolutionary, isn't it? They're all hipsters with their beards, and so the film's making a very, very unsubtle point, isn't it? That the sort of high camp fascism of Iraq is going to be resisted by by the people, and that's the image that we're getting here.
Yeah, it won 2 awards at the Fajr International Film Festival, the Iranian Oscars. It won Best Special Effects and Best National Film. And I think maybe that last award is a clue. But this falls into something that I discovered. Sacred Defense Cinema, or Holy Defense Cinema. Have you come across this? A title given to Iranian pro-establishment war films concerning mainly the Iran-Iraq war. Although little noted in the West, the genre has produced more than 200 movies, including some critical and commercial hits. I read that a lot of well-respected Iranian directors have done, at some point in their career, a sacred defense cinema film. So I've slightly jumped ahead to Best Companion Film to watch with this one. There's more than 200 of them, apparently. One thing I wanted to get onto is the depiction of... You've mentioned about the kind of family atmosphere behind the lines on the Iranian side. It looks like quite a trendy music festival, doesn't it? But does this do an accurate job of depicting the war? Because I mean, it's often said that this is. I was reading a declassified CIA document about this, and they're talking about how it's like the First World War, trench warfare, mustard gas. At one point in the film, I think the Iranians actually talk about using phosphorus gas in this movie, but all it appears to do is give a nice kind of smoky background to the film. It doesn't make any sense. But child soldiers, some as young as 12, used as human wave attacks that you've mentioned by Iran. We don't get any of that. I suppose this film is not interested in that. It's a very black and white, good guys, bad guys movie.
Well, I did sort of look that up in terms of accuracy because I have read a lot of things which call into question. I suppose some people would say that calling them human wave attacks is in itself a bit problematic because it creates this idea of sort of brainwashed children shouting Allahu Akbar, etc. And actually, some historians say that the tactics are actually a lot more sophisticated than that. I think the reason why we don't get, I mean, of course, we're on this Flanders-like battlefield, aren't we, on the Four Peninsula? And this is, as far as I've read, this is set during the Battle of the Marshes, and I think that obviously you can see the marshes when he gets killed at the end. We're in the marshes. I did think to myself, why aren't we seeing the sacrifice of kids effectively here? To be fair to the filmmaker here, if this is set in 1984, Iranian tactics had changed by that point from so-called human wave attacks to more sophisticated, more targeted kind of assaults like this, sniper warfare, that kind of thing. So I suppose it's accurate in that sense. I did hear the director say, and he talks about a superhero movie, which I think says a lot, but he also said that a lack of funds is an obstacle to the portrayal of this war. So interesting to hear that there's such a subgenre of movies about this war, because he was talking about the lack of funds. And if you're making a bit of a battlefield epic, you need the money, don't you? Now, I believe he made this for circa $400,000, which ain't a lot, is it, really?
No, absolutely not. But this is obviously a lower budget film. But I mean, I suppose we have bashed it around the head with a stick quite a lot. But I mean, it is very effective as a sniper movie, which brings me on to the cult of the sniper, the sort of troubled, noble loner doing what he has to do, the detached man as a machine, killing machine. This guy in the movie, Abdolrasoul Zarrin, is said to kill. I mean, there's a kind of, I don't know if you have looked into this, there's a kind of sort of sick kind of obsession with statistics when it comes to snipers. Longer shots, most kills, the equipment that they're using. And I kind of get a bit lost in that when I research into sniper stuff. So this guy has got more than 700 confirmed kills, although people say he killed 3,000. The upper limit is 3,000 people that he's killed. I mean, it's just absolutely horrific. I just don't want to lose that point because, thinking of other sniper movies, there's such a cult. This figure is such a cult in movies, in video games, of the strong warrior the loner of the sniper, and I'm just wondering why that is such a trope. I mean, in this movie, it says at one point he didn't kill privates, drivers, or low category people. I've no idea whether that's true. And he's also described as a martyr, of course. We've gone into why that is in this particular movie, but there is that kind of cult around snipers that you get.
Yeah, and especially here, like you say, he allegedly he only takes out senior officers. So there's this he's this sort of Robin Hood, the people's champion. It's obviously propagandaic, isn't it? Because it's by implication, this is a popular people's war. By implication, the Islamic Revolution is a popular people's movement. There's a lot here about sort of justification of the regime, I suppose. One thing, again, I don't want to, be sort of taking the mickey here. It's a little bit unfair because, look, I don't speak Farsi, but I have to say, I did chuckle at some of the subtitles. In this movie. Did you have any favourite subtitles here?
Well, I love the fact he's referred to as the Iranian sniper. That's his name. For most of the Iranian sniper.
Iranian sniper.
I have. I don't know how accurate these subtitles are, but there were. Did you have any funny gaffes?
I've got. There's just one of the subtitles made me laugh and laugh and laugh. And it's the scene, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm taking them because, but there's such a funny scene where an Iraqi general is bollocking mercenaries who've been brought in, including American mercenaries who are all like, "Hell yeah!" and they're drinking, and that's another thing to point out as well. Of course, the Iranians, of course, are teetotal and very. Devout here. Whereas go back to the Iraqi lines, they're all drinking whiskey and stuff. And he thinks this Iraqi general thinks that these mercenaries are getting a bit rowdy. They're smoking, they're drinking, they're a bit cocky, and he yells at them in anger. I won't let you do such misbehaves.
Is that the scene where there's the pretty cool the leader of the mercenary group? As he goes, I've got it written down here. Now we're going to hunt, and he does this little bird symbol.
Yeah.
An Iranian sparrow, and then you get like Iraqi dance music, and it's like, oh, this is amazing. I want to hang out with these guys for the afternoon. Oh, that was great.
There's a lot of misbehaves going on with that crowd, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, brilliant. What I also loved though when I was watching this movie, that I did laugh out loud. Properly laugh out loud. I spat out water that I was drinking was watching this. Yeah. And there's a shot where you see the guy who plays the main character, Zarrin, a guy called Kambiz Diabaz. Now he's told, like, for half the movie, he's telling this kid, you've got to... I survived in the desert on just a couple of dates and a few olives and some bread. You can't eat that. You're not allowed to eat your dinner. You've got to... you've got to be in the mindset of a sniper. You go for days without food. Yeah. Did you see him running about halfway through the film? He weighs 16 stone. He's trying to run, and I think he can barely run. He's a big fella. He's a big guy. Yeah. And if you look at pictures of the real Zarrin, he's absolutely
live,
thin as a whip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Kambiz Diabaz, he's obviously like the Alec Baldwin of Persian cinema. A big name. Put in a few pounds. He's a big lad, isn't he? Allegedly,
he's a big old boy for a sniper.
He spent quite a lot of time with the son, your man's son, the sniper's son, to develop the character. So again, in terms of accuracy, we're saying a lot here about the fact that it's a propaganda movie, the sort of Islamic martyrdom theme, etc., etc. Where it's at its weakest, really, isn't it? When it becomes an Islamic instructional. But from what I've read, in terms of the nature of the battle, battles at this time in this war, and I stand to be corrected here, it looks to me fairly realistic in terms of its portrayal.
Yeah, I mean there are with the caveat there is one point when the main antagonist the Iraqi Freddy Mercury, is sniping people with abandon, and they're all just, including the old fella. As soon as I saw the old fella being nice and giving some food, I thought he's going to die.
Jeremy Corbyn.
As soon as I saw Jeremy Corbyn, as soon as I saw him, I knew he was going to die. And sure enough, there's a moment about an hour in where it takes them like 5 minutes to recognise that all these people are just getting killed by the sniper. It's completely ridiculous. There's also a point so a few other things I noticed. Did you also? I don't know again if this is a mistranslation. There's a point where the main Iraqi general, so Colonel Rashid's boss, he's saying, "Oh, this Zarrin guy, he's worthless. I can't believe you can take him out." And you can't take him out. And he's holding his photo. He goes, "This worthless guy, he hasn't gone to university."
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
I said, what sniper goes to university?
Yes, unless it's the University of Sniping. Well, I suppose that's, again, the propaganda aspect of portraying the very sort of haughty view from the Iraqi side that these are just peasants. These are sort of morons and peasants, and I suppose that's bolstering it's the people's war is the kind of opinion we're trying to get over here. It embodied, as you say, in the great character of the crusty old Mohammed Jabbar, the guy who makes the tea and cooks the dinner and then gets one between the eyes. Yeah.
I also noticed, I don't know if you did, I was just rewatching a few bits of this movie about an hour ago in preparation. Right at the end, and I found this by mistake, right at the end, over the credits, there's some clips of, I presume they're veterans, talking about the real Zarrin. Did you see that? I missed that the first time because I got to the end credits where it said sniper and I just turned it off. I thought, just there we go, that's the end of the film. I think they must obviously be talking about the real guy, saying he's a one-man battalion and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. That's quite an interesting thing over the credits at the end. You get those recollections. It's I really do think, I'm looking at the style in the Iranian trenches here. Like I say, keffiyeh scarves, beanie hats, large rimmed glasses, long beards. There's a hipster coffee shop open around the corner, actually, so I'm going to take notes on how to dress, from this movie. Okay, let's get on to... Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, the history or anything? Or move on to
I think we've gone through the history there. It's a horrific 8-year war, isn't it? It's in which, the Kissinger quote is very illustrative there. I think if you're... history is not a morality tale, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is I can see why... this period is important to Iran as essentially the victim here, and so you can understand perhaps the bent of this movie because of that.
Well, there must be an awful lot of soul searching if it's killed 500,000 people in your country as to why this event took place, and there'll obviously be different views on that depending on where you're coming from. Right, let's move on to our list of questions. What was your favourite scene, Bryce? I was going to choose the one I was talking about where they say we're going to hunt the Iranian sparrow, the mercenaries, but I had a few others. But what was yours?
I think it has to be the opening scene of the movie when, again, there's the two hostages there and he's sort of shooting at their feet, and I thought immediately of Goodfellas, get your shoe shine box, Spider, come on Spider, and shooting at their feet. That just made me think of Goodfellas there. But I suppose that's the opening scene. I thought it worked quite well in its sadism. But then I think for me the showstopper is Rasoul, the camp fascist Iraqi military Freddy Mercury. So I think I've mentioned the scene before when he comes in and orders his own men to be executed. That's probably my favourite scene. It's really establishing him as a bad man. He's a bad man.
It's not my favourite. There is a great scene in this movie where he takes out how crap are these mercenaries? He takes most of them out by not hiding in the place they think he will be. And then they open the door and then there's just this close-up of a metal box with flashing lights. It looks like something out of Doctor Who. And then the whole place blows up. Presumably that's some kind of bomb. But
Well,
what kind of bomb
they'd have been
has-
more focused and doing less misbehaves, then maybe they would have been more successful. Yeah.
I was expecting, when the mercenaries were introduced, I thought, okay, right, it's going to take them out one by one. Maybe this guy's got a weakness, like he likes a drink, so he's going to shoot him while he's drinking or something. But no, he just takes out 90% of them in one go while they're all crouched around the door. I think, the sniper duel scene, which is always a joy in sniper movies. Where you've got the kind of flashback and the guy, he gets his front finger shot
Yeah.
off. A la Lee Van Cleef in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, with the missing index finger. But
It's quite his stump is quite swollen, isn't it? His stump of an index finger is quite swollen. Yeah.
He is, and he has to shoot with his middle finger. That's like his trigger finger is his middle finger. So maybe that. I will go for the mercenary. I think the funniest thing is the mercenary. I love the mercenaries. I just want to hang out with the mercenaries. They look like a great bunch of lads.
You want to do some misbehaves, yeah.
Misbehaves, yeah. Favorite performance, Bryce? I'll tell you mine first because it has to be the guy. Colonel Gayoom Rashid. I had a hard time finding his name. I don't know the name of the actor, but he, in that sniper duel scene, where he goes crazy inside the burnt out tank. He's like the Iraqi Al Pacino, and he's going, I've killed him,
yeah.
send in the tanks. And then I'm expecting him to go, and he's got a great ass. Oh man, turned it up to 12, completely over the top acting. Definitely my favourite.
It's just, it's everything. He's clearly my favourite as well. It's just everything about the performance. It's the clipped Freddie Mercury moustache, the polished bald head. It's the stuff, the camp details, I think, the driving gloves, the cravat, the little hissy fits. It's very good, yeah. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think, mind you, I thought, the lead, I thought it was a good enough performance. I just don't think he can do it physically. I think maybe there's a reason why there's a lot of close-ups of him in this
Cambiz
movie.
Durbaz. Well, he's obviously been living the celeb life, hasn't he?
It's fair. It's fair play. Who should do the DVD commentary? Which historical figure? Saddam?
Well, he's dead. Can we choose dead people?
Yeah, for Napoleon, we chose Napoleon, didn't we?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think. Well, wouldn't it be nice to hear from your man himself, from Rasoul, the sniper, to say whether stuff is accurate there? It'd be quite an interesting commentary, wouldn't it? Or maybe Ayatollah Khomeini, or maybe Saddam, or one of his sadistic nutcase children, or some Middle Eastern nutcase would be quite good to narrate this. Yeah.
The best companion movie to watch with this. I talked about the Sacred Defense Cinema.
Yeah,
hundreds of movies apparently that you can watch about this topic, and then of course historical sniper movies, American Sniper, Enemy at the Gates, The Hurt Locker, maybe something like that. That is, if you think about it, those movies are from maybe not Enemy at the Gates, but those there's American sniper movies,
yeah.
And there's even like modern ones. I think Mark Wahlberg is in one, The Shooter. Again talking about this cult, it's like from a completely different background from the US side, but but it interests me that the sniper still has this kind of revered place amongst the military or amongst society, in those movies. Yeah. Marks out of 10, Bryce.
It's a difficult one, this, isn't it?
Well, I'd say it's 6.5 from IMDb.
It's not a very sophisticated movie. It's a boys' movie, I think, with a capital B. I'm going to admit, actually, I actually really enjoyed it.
So did I. Yeah. I don't think it's a good movie, but it is good fun.
It's good fun. Having said that, it is, I think, a propaganda movie.
Yeah.
In the same way that some of the movies you've mentioned, are basically sort of American propaganda movies, and it gets a bit tiresome. Like I say, when you have the sort of this guy, it's almost a hagiography of this guy at times, which I think is a bit, it's a bit puerile, really. So, okay, having taken into account all those things, again, for me, first movie I've seen about the Iran-Iraq War, although, as you say, there's loads of movies about it. So, Let me see. I'm going to give it a nice round 5, I think.
That's exactly what I have. Yeah, that's what I've given it as well.
Good.
So what's making it into the museum, our podcast museum, for you? The Hall of Fame.
Go on. What do you think should go in there?
Well, yeah, I suppose you could go for his rifle, his Dragunov SVD rifle, a much revered sniper rifle, I believe. Or the one. I love the light pink desert uniforms. I mean, that's obviously, they wear that because of the camouflage, but it just looks great. But what it has to be for me is Colonel Rashed's battlefield diorama.
Oh yeah.
Where he's talking about we're gonna. I mean, I don't know to what scale that is. Yeah. But how could you possibly have a little diorama that's covering the whole area?
Did you notice?
I love it. I want that in my living room.
Okay, we'll put that. Can we also put at the end when the Iraqi guy defects at the end, or is that a genuine? I couldn't actually quite work this out. Does he genuinely defect, or is it all a ruse?
No,
it's all a ruse.
Yeah, it's a double cross, isn't it? Yeah, the nice. Ostensibly nice Iraqi. I think he's a major or something.
Yeah.
You think, this guy's actually all right. He's exercising restraint. Do we have to kill innocent people? And he's still a bastard.
He's still a bastard. And also, there's some great schmorking in this movie. Some great smoking, especially from some great angry smoking, especially from the Iraqis. But on the question of dioramas, the map that they go over when they have him in custody, when he's pinpointing where the Iraqi positions are. The map looks as if it was drawn by a 3-year-old. Do you remember this scene? The map is.
I don't remember the map. I remember the scene, not the map.
I think probably unkind to some 3-year-olds. Like they're looking at this map as if it's sophisticated sort of GPS thing. Honestly, it's like river, gun. That's quite funny.
Should be stuck on the front of a fridge.
Yeah,
with magnets next to like a bad picture of a dog or something.
Mummy and Daddy.
Yeah. So what else have we got? What would happen in the sequel if there was one? 4 more years of war and stalemate. Yeah, as I said, I presume this is in 1984 because that's the year in which the real guy died.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what the stalemate would be. The sequel would be.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting to see has there been any biopics on Saddam?
I don't know. Good question. I don't think so.
I think I'd like to see as a sort of follow up to this. I'd like to see a good Saddam Hussein movie.
I mean, there is I haven't seen it. There's a film from from 98, which is Iranian, called The Glass Agency, which is about veterans living in post-war Iran. Which that people suffering from social problems after the war and so on. So
really depressing.
Yeah, but I mean it is included in the Sacred Defense Cinema list. So I don't know whether it's all gun-toting movies. I don't believe so. Maybe that would be an interesting one to watch with it. Did you get any? I saw you sent me a picture when you were doing the research for this. You were reading John Simpson, war correspondent, John Simpson's book. Did you get any? I thought that might be rich ground for any for Sood's Corner.
No. Well, there is a section where he's discussing the difference between mustard gas and cyanide in a sort of like, don't you know the difference sort of way. But I like John Simpson. Yeah, that was one of the books I sort of went back to about this era, and it's actually very good. The Wars Against Saddam, Taking the Hard Road to Baghdad. I didn't get anything for Sood's Corner because there just obviously ain't the volume of film critics for some of these numbers, or at least stuff we can read. Yes. So you didn't get any Sood stuff?
No, and same with military. I'm sure the military historians or military people would have a field day at the inability for people to keep their heads down in this movie. Yeah. Sometimes there's just montages of people like, huh? Like it's like whack-a-mole. It's just crazy. People getting their head shot off.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get anything for that. It was quite difficult to research this in many ways because it's a presumably unknown film. I think that's it, Bryce. I think we've done it. We've we've got through it.
Look, again, if any fans of the show want to, send in a suggestion for us to look at, which is the case here with, like we say, super fan Fabi is why we looked at this, and we'll do so. And I think all that I need to do now is to go away and binge on Sacred Defense Cinema. If there's another pandemic coming, I think that's what I'll probably do. I'll get stuck into the old Sacred Defense Cinema out of Iran.
200 movies.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Bryce.
Okay.
And we'll see you next time on the Historical Movies Podcast.